What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series, where today we're taking a look at the team that holds the 22nd overall pick in the first round, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. And with the Baltimore Ravens, it is very interesting because they don't have a second-round pick, because that goes to my beloved Philadelphia Eagles, which was the pick that the Eagles acquired so that the Baltimore Ravens could get Lamar Jackson. And I actually don't know any Baltimore Raven fans. Like, I knew some in high school, obviously because they're Raven fans. We grew out of touch. They're probably in prison now. But I actually don't really know how to judge and to gauge the fan base right now for the Baltimore Ravens and how they feel about Lamar Jackson. Because obviously, they felt pretty good down the stretch. Then we saw what happened in the playoffs, and they're kind of like, do they want Joe Flacco to come in? So I don't really know. I don't know how to gauge the fan base on that, but he is the starter. He's a franchise quarterback going forward, and we're going to try to help him out in this mock draft by giving him much more weapons than what he already has. And surprise, surprise, I don't have the Baltimore Ravens pulling a meme and drafting a tight end. So at pick 22, I was selecting N'Keal Harry, wide receiver from Arizona State. I've always been a big fan of N'Keal Harry. I was on the DK Metcalf hype train way back before last year's college football season even started. Like, my exact words were, A.J. Brown is the wide receiver one on everybody's boards. And I don't think he's the best wide receiver at Ole Miss. I like DK Metcalf more. And then obviously, with all the Combine hype and all that stuff, I mean, he is a polarizing player in DK Metcalf. But a lot of people, do think that because of the potential, he could be wide receiver one. But I've also always been a big fan of N'Keal Harry. Watching Pac-12 after midnight, Pac-12 after dark, whatever you want to call it, up here in Canada, is kind of what I do when I'm trying to fall asleep. And I watched a bunch of Arizona State games. And I was like, this N'Keal Harry guy is a monster. And he's been one of my favorite wide receivers in college football for the last 2 years. And I'm excited to see him go to a team like Baltimore that desperately needs a wide receiver one and needs one sooner than later. And I honestly think, looking at the talent on their roster at wide receiver, they got like Jordan Lashley, Jaleel Scott, Willie Snead. Like, they have nothing at wide receiver. Now, I would definitely like to think that after May 7th, which is where you could sign some of the later free agents and they won't count against comp picks, Baltimore's going to go out and try to get a nice veteran wide receiver in there, because right now the wide receiver core is easily the worst in the NFL. But I think N'Keal Harry can be wide receiver right away. He has that always open trait, I feel. Like, even if he's double covered, throw it his way. He'll find a way to come down with the ball. You want red zone, he got it. Jump ball, he got it. Route running, he got it. Hands, he got it. And I think an underrated aspect of his game is, I guess, like, to put it in Madden terms, his ball carrier vision. When he has the ball in his hands, yards after the catch, he's really, really good. I mean, you look at his frame, you look at his combine, which wasn't elite, which is why I think a lot of people are actually kind of down on him. I've seen people have N'Keal Harry going like mid-second round, which is absolutely ridiculous. He was like the main kick returner for Arizona State. He is very, very elusive, very, very smart with the ball in his hands. I think that's an underrated aspect of his game. And yeah, I do like the upside of Jaleel Scott. Last year to New Mexico State, I think I had him going a little bit later than when the Baltimore Ravens drafted him, but I thought he had a lot of upside, very intriguing prospect. And not so much, when you're looking at Jaleel Scott last year, like, oh, he can play tight end or something like that. I kind of always use him as wide receiver, and I think there is some upside there. But getting a guy like N'Keal Harry, looking at their roster right now, is almost a must for the Baltimore Ravens. Going into the third round, where they have 2 third-round picks. First up at 85, I'm selecting Drew Samia, offensive guard from Oklahoma. He's a versatile offensive lineman. He can play guard and tackle, but I'm going to kind of pigeonhole him right now as a guard. He's a great athlete, and I think he can compete for the starting left guard spot immediately. I mean, Marshall Yanda got that right guard spot on lock, but he's no spring chicken anymore either way. They got to start thinking about his replacement eventually. I don't think they have either. They don't have a starting left guard or Marshall Yanda's replacement on that roster right now. So I think a guy like Drew Samia, good enough in the third round to come in with his athletic profile to compete and potentially start right away. And we know that, the Baltimore Ravens will give youngsters an opportunity to play. I mean, Orlando Brown tanked his stock last year. They drafted him, and now he, at some point in the year, I can't remember the exact week, he emerged as a starter at right tackle. They got Ronnie Stanley. They got him starting as soon as possible. I think a guy like Drew Samia will very much bring and fit that profile that the Baltimore Ravens want to look for in their offensive lineman, and that is play you sooner than later. And, you look at their starting left guard right now, it's Alex Lewis, and Pro Football Focus graded him the 67th guard in the National Football League. Like, that is just simply not good enough, especially when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, where having a strong offensive line is not, mandatory, but obviously it's a young quarterback. The better, Lamar can make plays if the pocket breaks down, but just imagine what better plays he can make when he has time to think and process and run as intended, not just run because he's running for his life. So I think Drew Samia and improving the interior of that offensive line is paramount, and we have another pick later on in the draft to try to help solidify it. Going to the third round, second third-round pick at 102, I'm selecting Bobby Okereke, linebacker from Stanford. He's an excellent build from like a size standpoint, you know, prototypical 3-4 inside linebacker size. He has super long arms, which for whatever reason, like it fits that profile of like Darius Leonard last year. And that's like kind of the profile that people want to look for because he was a really good value pick for the Indianapolis Colts. He had a pretty good combine running a 4.58. He is a cover linebacker with really good instincts. Biggest thing about him, though, is he tries to play like a power linebacker, old school linebacker, big thumper. It doesn't always come off for him. But I think with C.J. Mosley gone, they need to add depth to the inside linebacking core. And I think Bobby Okereke can compete with Kenny Young for that inside linebacker 2 job. Patrick, I always butcher his name, Onwuasor, whatever. He's really, really good. Like I remember just from a fantasy football, I'm not a Baltimore Ravens fan by any means, but I've seen him make a couple plays. I had him as like one of my IDP linebackers in fantasy football, and he was really, really solid for me last season. So I think that's probably why they let C.J. Mosley go. Or there was reports that the Baltimore Ravens wanted C.J. Mosley back, but ultimately they weren't going to get in a bidding war with the Jets because I think Onwuasor is good enough to start. I think that's the Baltimore Raven way, is just constantly finding, like, who was that linebacker they had a couple years ago from like North Texas? He had to retire super early, came out of nowhere and was uber productive. So while it might be a little bit faux pas for them to use a third-round pick on an inside linebacker, because usually they just find some guy off the street and turn him into a Pro Bowler, I think a guy like Okereke brings very, very nice depth, and they kind of do need depth right now to the middle of that linebacking core. Going to the fourth round at pick 113, I was selecting Justin Hollins, outside linebacker from Oregon. He had an excellent combine for a 3-4 outside linebacker at 6'5", 250, running a 4.50, putting up 25 reps on the bench press. And I kind of think right now when you look at the Baltimore Ravens roster, they lost Zadarius Smith in free agency. He got a very nice payday from the Green Bay Packers. And they do have some guys that they have invested in. Tim Williams was a third-round pick, and he slipped a couple years ago when he was coming out of Alabama. He was regarded as maybe a fringe first-round talent. I think it was some off the field, and he slipped into the third round. They got Tyus Bowser, who was a second-round pick in that same draft, but we haven't really seen much out of them. And obviously, Matt Judon is a really, really nice player, really, really underrated linebacker, but to take over that edge rushing role, I mean, we haven't seen enough out of Tim Williams and Tyus Bowser to gamble that they can do it. And I think, continuing to add guys, at worst case scenario for someone like Justin Hollins, that's an exceptional athlete, he's going to be just a nice part of a outside linebacker edge rush rotation, which is what they got to try to build there. I mean, they got Ewan Price from Pitt. I think he was an undrafted free agent. He actually had some really good tape at Pitt. I remember, actually, I think I still have his scouting report. You put that in with Tyus Bowser, Matt Judon, Tim Williams. That's a very healthy outside rotation. And I think it's a good upside pick here for the Baltimore Ravens. Going to their second fourth-round pick at 123, I'm selecting Damien Harris, running back from Alabama. This is a pretty nice value pick at this given point, especially if you're looking at it from maybe like the preseason grades that you had for certain players before the college football season started, because Damien Harris is right there in the mix. He has 3-down running back traits. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside of the tackles, even though it's not a strength of his game. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, has some pretty natural hands. And I think ultimately you look at the running back core right now, they kind of have something like that in Kent Dixon, but he's been completely unreliable, be it injuries and suspensions. So I think at this point, if Damien Harris is still there, why not? Why not get this guy that can come in? You got Gus Edwards. He's just another, let's be honest, Gus Edwards just another guy. DeLance Turner, another guy. Dixon can't stay on the field. And Mark Ingram is not brought in to be your franchise running back. He's 30. He's on the downswing of his career. Still, you're going to hope that he can be pretty damn productive, which I think he will. But I think getting someone like Damien Harris, have him develop, have him, not get the reins right away. Like I said just a second ago, like we may have perceived pre-college football season, where we thought, Damien Harris could be a franchise first-round type running back. But have him come in, work his way through that rotation, sit behind Mark Ingram, and have some spot duty. And I think ultimately for me, this pick is just more so because of the unreliability you have with Kenneth Dixon. And, Damien Harris also had like an average combine, 4.57 40 for a guy who looked a little bit faster on tape, slightly hurt his draft stock just a little bit. But I think ultimately getting that upside running back that could be the future partner in crime long-term with Lamar Jackson would be nice here for the Baltimore Ravens. Going into the sixth round at pick 160, I was selecting Evan Worthington, safety from Colorado. Brings traits galore at 6'2", 205 pounds. Had a lot of good tape covering big body tight ends, which is kind of, what, you want maybe a spot safety to do if you want to go nickel and stuff like that. And currently, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they run a little bit of nickel. They have Tony Jefferson, Earl Thomas, which was a huge get, but who's necessarily going to be that third safety? Not really clear right now. And a guy like Evan Worthington, who most scouts will agree has an incredibly high ceiling, being able to sit and develop behind Earl Thomas as his mentor is going to be an exceptional scenario for him to go and land for an NFL team. And he kind of did have a below-average combine, which I also think kind of hurt his stock just a little bit, a 4.63, when pretty much everyone else in the safety group was very, very fast. It doesn't eliminate the tape, doesn't eliminate the positives that you could see, the flashes of the high upside that he's going to be able to bring, but a 4.63 is still, that's not very good. So I think ultimately when I look at the roster, you got to get some special teams ability. You have that high ceiling, not a better guy for him to learn behind than Earl Thomas. I think he could be safety 4 on the Baltimore Ravens as a rookie. Then finishing up in the 6th round, they have 2 6th-round picks. First up at 191, I am selecting George ASAFO-ADJEI, offensive guard from Kentucky. He is an elite athlete as an offensive lineman at 6'5", 305 pounds. At his pro day, ran a 4.93 and put up 31 reps on the bench press. Plays offensive guard and offensive tackle. He's a 2-time SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week last year. Was a big reason why not only Benny Logan had the kind of year he has, kind of years he's been able to have, but the reason why Kentucky was so legitimate for like 90% of the college football season in the SEC. And I think when you look at Baltimore, kind of like when we're talking about the 3rd-round pick, Drew Samia, outside of Marshall Yanda, they might have one of the, I'm not going to say the worst, but they definitely are like top 5 for worst interior offensive lines in the league. I think with GAA, which we'll call it just to make his name a little bit easier, his versatility, playing tackle and guard. I mean, right now in the 6th round, if you can find a guy that can dress as your 6th offensive lineman on game day, that guy that brings elite versatility, maybe an upgrade over a guy that, Alex Lewis or James Hurst, like those are probably the 2 other guys, or Jermaine Illuminor. I think a guy that's an elite athlete with a high ceiling here, like GAA, good value in the 6th round here for Baltimore, just to continue to try and build and find some winning combination in the interior of the offensive line that's, maybe thinking long-term beyond Marshall Yanda. And then finish up the draft at 193. In the 6th round, I was selecting Gary Jennings, wide receiver from West Virginia. Baltimore's wide receiver room is absolutely wide open. And while we did have him selected N'Keal Harry in the 1st round, while I do think they're still going to probably sign a veteran at some point, a guy like Gary Jennings, I mean, he could emerge as wide receiver 3. He had a great combine at 6'1", 215 pounds, running a 4.42. You might think a guy that had 13 touchdowns last year and fits that athletic profile, why is he still here in the 6th round? Well, he's kind of one-year wonder, big boomer bust, gimmicky offense there in West Virginia. You saw some insane numbers for like David Sills. And he has a limited route running tree, and I think ultimately that's, has guys slip into day 3. How far will he go? Might not be into the 6th round, but that's just how my mock draft played out. But again, I think Baltimore will get 2 wide receivers in this year's draft class, because right now, man, it's not good. Like when Willie Snead, who coming off a disappointing year, is your best wide receiver, your most promising wide receiver, you got some problems, especially when your quarterback is Lamar Jackson, and while he's trying to develop, while he's trying to grow into a QB, you need weapons. You need weapons to help him grow. Right now, he's destined to fail with the weapons that's being provided to him. So I think getting a guy like N'Keal Harry, bringing in a veteran free agent, getting a guy like Gary Jennings late as a flyer, I think all those moves would be smart moves for the Baltimore Ravens to make. So there you go, guys. That is the 7th-round mock draft here for the Baltimore Ravens. Raven fans in particular, let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with this mock draft. And as always, guys, if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.